Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are doing something that might sound a little bit intimidating at first glance, maybe even a little dry if you just look at the table of contents. We are tackling the Book of Numbers.
Yeah, it is an unfortunate title in English, isn't it? It really suffers from a branding problem.
It really does. I mean, you hear numbers and you immediately think of spreadsheets. You think of tax season, a long, dry list of statistics.
Right.
You certainly don't think of spies, sorcerers, talking animals, and this massive generation-defining tragedy.
Exactly. And that is the tragedy of the title itself, because the content is anything but dry. It is actually one of the most psychologically complex books in the entire text. If you look at the Hebrew title for this book, it's Bamidbar, which translates to in the wilderness.
In the wilderness. See, that already changes the entire vibe. That sounds like an adventure story.
It does.
This sounds like a survival show.
And that is exactly what it is. It captures the true essence of what we are looking at today. This isn't just a census. It is a travelogue. It's a journey through a highly hostile environment where the internal battle, what is happening inside the hearts of the people, is actually much more dangerous than the external elements, the heat or the lack of water.
I love that framing. So we aren't just counting heads today. We're looking at a group of people trying to survive themselves.
Precisely. Our mission for this deep dive is to trace a single, seamless narrative arc. We are going to watch the Israelites start with what looks like perfect order, arranged around a divine center, and then watch them descend into this chaotic rebellion and death, only to eventually reemerge as a totally new generation ready for conquest.
It's almost like a three-act play. Order, disorder, and reordering.
That is a perfect way to structure it. And for our sources today, we are going strictly off the primary text of the Book of Numbers, chapters 1 through 36, alongside a really insightful theological teaching commentary titled Order in the Wilderness and the Presence at the Center.
Okay, let's unpack this. We start in the wilderness of Sinai. The tabernacle has just been built, right?
Yes, context is everything here.
Yeah.
We are in the second year after leaving Egypt. They have had the golden calf incident. They have built the tabernacle. The laws of Leviticus have been given. Now, before they can move toward the promised land, they need to know who they are. They need to be organized.
So, chapter 1 opens with a census. And this is where the book gets its English name. But I want to stop and actually look at these numbers. Because when I was reading the source material, the sheer scale of this just hit me.
It is staggering. The command is to count every male 20 years old and upward, quote, all that are able to go forth to war.
Able to go to war. That's a key distinction right there. This isn't just a population count. It's a military draft.
It is the formation of an army. You have to remember, back in Genesis, the Israelites were just a family clan, the sons of Jacob, a few dozen people. Now they are transitioning into a sovereign nation. And the total count in chapter 1 comes to 603,550 men of fighting age.
600,000 men. Okay, let's do some back-of-the-napkin math here. That is just men over 20.
Right.
That doesn't include women. It doesn't include children. It doesn't include the elderly. And it doesn't include the Levites, who we'll get to in a minute.
Exactly. If you extrapolate that out, assuming wives and an average number of children, conservative estimates put the total population at around 2 to 2.5 million people.
I want to pause there because I think we gloss over that number too easily when we hear these stories. 2.5 million people.
It's massive.
That is not a camping trip. That is the population of Houston, Texas, or Chicago moving across a desert in the Bronze Age.
Without a sewer system, without a water grid,
Yeah.
without a grocery supply chain.
I was looking at the logistics of this, and it's mind-bending. To march a group that size, if they march, say, 10 abreast, tightly pack the column, would be something like 50 miles long.
Wow.
When the front of the line was setting up camp for the night, the back of the line would still be at yesterday's campsite.
It creates a logistical crisis every single morning. Just think about the resources. To feed 2.5 million people, you would need roughly 4,000 tons of food per day. You would need about 11 million gallons of water per day just for drinking and minimal washing.
And that puts the complaining we see later in the book into a totally different context, doesn't it? I mean, I get hangry if I miss lunch.
Right.
These people are in a situation where if God doesn't show up with manna and water today, they all die today.
It really does shift your perspective. When the text says they were in a desert land, the Hebrew implies a place of utter desolation. This wasn't an inconvenience, it was a daily existential threat. And that explains the obsession with order in these early chapters. In a group this size, if you don't have rigid structure, you don't have a nation. You have a riot. You have a mob. And chaos in the wilderness means death.
So how do they organize 2 million people? It's not just, hey, pitch your tent wherever you find a flat spot.
Far from it. This is where the visual of the camp becomes so important. And the text describes a very specific geometric arrangement. Our commentary calls it an architecture of holiness.
Paint the picture for us. If I'm looking down from a drone, what do I see?
Imagine a massive square or cross formation. In the absolute center, you have the tabernacle, the dwelling place of God. That is the heartbeat of the camp. God is not an accessory to their life. He is the literal center of their existence. All the tents face inward toward him.
Okay, so the tabernacle is the bullseye. Who is right next to it?
The protective ring, if you will. That's the tribe of Levi. They encamp immediately around the tabernacle. Their job is to guard the holiness. They act as a buffer, almost like a blast shield, between a holy God and the general population.
And then the rest of the tribes are outside that ring.
Correct. They are stationed by standard or flag in 4 groups.
Yeah.
On the east side, you have Judah leading the way. On the south, Reuben. On the west, Ephraim. And on the north, Dan, every single tribe has specific coordinates.
I want to dig into those standards for a second. The text mentions they camped by their standards. Tradition gives us some really interesting details about what was actually on those flags, right?
Yes, Jewish tradition and historical commentary give us the imagery. On the east, Judah's standard was a lion. On the south, Reuben's standard was often associated with the face of a man. On the west, Ephraim was the ox. And on the north, Dan was the eagle.
Wait a minute. Lion, man, ox, eagle. That sounds incredibly familiar to anyone who has read the visions in Ezekiel or the throne room in Revelation.
It is the exact same imagery. The 4 living creatures that surround the throne of God in heaven have the faces of a lion, a man, an ox, and an eagle.
That is wild. So the Camp of Israel wasn't just a military formation, it was a model of heaven.
Exactly. It was designed to be a mirror of heaven on earth. They were arranged in a formation that mimicked the cherubim surrounding God's throne. So when Balaam looks down on them later in the book, spoiler alert, he isn't just seeing a refugee camp, he's seeing a reflection of the celestial hierarchy. It's a mandala of order.
That adds so much depth to why the layout matters. But let's go back to that inner ring, the Levites. The text makes a big deal about them not being numbered with the rest of the army. Why is that?
Because they have a different kind of warfare. They are wholly given to God. The text explains that God takes the Levites in place of the firstborns of all Israel. They are the dedicated workforce for the sanctuary.
And looking at the source text, their job descriptions are incredibly specific. It's not just, hey, help out around the tent. It's very clearly defined based on their specific families, the Kohathites, the Gershonites, and the Merarites.
It is fascinatingly detailed logistics. The Gershonites carry the soft materials, the curtains, the badger skins, the hangings. They get wagons to help them. The Merarites carry the heavy structural stuff, the boards, the pillars, the silver sockets. They get wagons too. But the Kohathites, they have the most distinct and dangerous job.
The Kohathites, these are the guys carrying the holy furniture, right? The ark, the table, the lampstand.
Yes, and note the distinction. They get no wagons. They have to carry these objects on their shoulders. But even before they pick them up, the priests have to go in and cover everything with specific cloths. Blue cloth, badger skin. The Kohathites carry these objects, but the text says they must not touch any holy thing, quote, lest they die. They also can't even go in to see the holy things while they're being covered.
That is high stakes. Imagine your job description being, carry this box on your shoulder, but if your hand slips and touches it, you drop dead.
It emphasizes that order here isn't just about neatness, it's about survival. You cannot approach the divine casually. The camp is set up to protect the people from the raw power of God's presence, just as much as it is to protect the presence from the people's impurity. It's like handling nuclear material. You need protocols.
Speaking of protocols and impurity, that moves us into the next section of the text, chapters 5 through 10. We have the camp layout set. Now we have the protocols for living there, and some of this is, well, it's intense.
It is. The overarching theme here is purity. Because God dwells in the midst, the camp must reflect his purity. So you see commands to expel lepers and those with bodily discharges. Basically, anything that symbolizes death or decay has to be put without the camp.
And then we get to a passage that I think stops a lot of modern readers in their tracks. The test for adultery, the spirit of jealousy.
Yes, the soda ritual. This is a very difficult text for modern ears.
Walk us through what is actually happening here in the text. A husband suspects his wife of cheating but has no proof. He gets jealous. Then what?
He brings it to the priest. The priest takes holy water and mixes it with dust from the floor of the tabernacle. He writes curses on a scroll, washes the ink off into the water, and makes the woman drink it.
It sounds like magic, or a trial by ordeal from the Middle Ages.
It certainly has ritualistic elements, but look at the significance of it in a tribal context. In many ancient Near Eastern cultures, if a husband suspected his wife, he might just kill her. Or her family might attack him. It leads to blood feuds. It leads to honor killings.
So this ritual actually intervenes in that violence.
Exactly. The text effectively removes the judgment from the hands of the angry husband and places it solely in the hands of God. If she is innocent, the water does nothing. The text says she will be free and able to conceive children.
And if she's guilty?
If she is guilty, the water causes a physical curse. Her belly swells and her thigh rots. But the crucial point for the social structure is that justice wasn't left to mob violence or private vendettas. It was brought before the Lord. It's a protocol for maintaining social order under God, protecting the woman from the immediate wrath of a jealous husband.
That is a really helpful perspective. It stops the cycle of vengeance. Now, on the flip side of these restrictions, you have something called the Nazirite vow. This seemed cool to me. It's like voluntary holiness.
That's a great way to put it. Usually priests are born, not made. You have to be from the tribe of Levi. But the Nazirite vow allowed layperson, man or woman, to choose a period of high-level dedication.
Like, I want to be super holy for a month.
Essentially, they would abstain from wine and grapes, anything from the vine. They wouldn't cut their hair. And they couldn't go near a dead body, even for a close relative. It was a way for an average Israelite to say, I want to be separated unto God.
Yeah.
This democratic holiness.
And this section wraps up with something very famous, the Aaronic blessing.
The Lord bless thee and keep thee. It's the seal of this covenant order. After all the laws about lepers and jealousy and vows, God wants them to know. His face shines upon them. He wants to give them peace.
So the machine is built, the engine is running, the people are purified. Chapter 10, they depart Sinai. They are marching in perfect formation. The cloud lifts, the silver trumpets blow. It feels triumphant.
It really does. It feels like the start of a glorious campaign. They have the ultimate GPS, the cloud and the fire. If it stays, they stay. If it moves, they move. They're completely synchronized.
But spoiler alert, it doesn't stay triumphant for long. We get to chapter 11 and the wheels start to fall off immediately.
The shift is jarring. Chapter 10 ends with them marching with the Ark of the Covenant going before them. Chapter 11, verse 1 starts. And when the people complained.
It is instant. And what are they complaining about? It's not the heat. It's not the walking. It's the menu.
They want meat. They are tired of the manna. And listen to the text. It's almost funny if it weren't so tragic. They say, we remember the fish, which we did eat in Egypt freely, the cucumbers and the melons and the leeks and the onions and the garlic.
They have a very selective memory of Egypt, don't they?
Very selective.
They forgot the whips, the straw, the dead babies, and the slavery, but they remember the garlic.
It's the distortion of nostalgia. They despise the manna, which is miraculous bread from heaven, sustaining them perfectly, calling it light bread. They want the heavy, flavorful food of their captivity. It's a spiritual diagnosis. Their bodies are out of Egypt, but their appetites are still in Egypt.
And God's reaction is intense. He gives them what they want, but there is a catch.
He sends quail. A wind brings quail from the sea, piling them up 3 feet high around the camp. And God says, effectively, you want meat. I will give you meat. You'll eat it not for 1 day or 2, but a whole month, until it comes out of your nostrils.
That is such a visceral image. Until it comes out of your nostrils, it's like, be careful what you wish for.
And while the meat is literally still in their teeth, a plague strikes. And the place is named Kibroth-Hattava, which means the graves of craving. It's a brutal lesson. The things you crave can kill you if they pull your heart away from God.
Amidst all this complaining, Moses hits a wall. I actually felt for him in this section. He basically says to God, just kill me.
It is classic burnout. He says, have I conceived all this people? Did I give birth to them? He cannot carry the burden alone. So God appoints 70 elders to share the weight.
And there's this interesting little detail about Eldad and Medad, 2 guys who didn't show up to the meeting but started prophesying in the camp anyway.
And Joshua, Moses' assistant, wants to stop them. He is jealous for Moses' authority. But Moses shows true leadership here. He refuses to be jealous. He says, would God that all the Lord's people were prophets. He isn't clutching power. He is desperate for help.
But not everyone is as humble as Moses. We get to chapter 12, and the rebellion moves right into Moses' own family. Miriam and Aaron turn against him.
This is significant because these are the top 3 leaders. Miriam is a prophetess. Aaron is the high priest. And they challenge Moses.
The text says they spoke against him because of the Ethiopian woman he married. So Is this about race? Is this about in-laws?
On the surface, it's about his wife, a Cushite woman. But if you read their actual argument, the real issue comes out. They say, hath the Lord indeed spoken only by Moses? Hath he not spoken also by us?
So the wife is just the excuse. The real issue is a power struggle. We hear from God too. Why are you the boss?
Exactly. It's about authority. And God calls a sudden staff meeting at the tabernacle. He calls the three of them out.
And the verdict is swift.
God defends Moses. He says, with other prophets I speak in dreams, but with Moses I speak mouth to mouth. And when the cloud lifts, Miriam is leprous, white as snow.
Why, just Miriam. Aaron was involved too.
That is a question scholars debate a lot. Some suggest Miriam was the instigator. Others point out that if Aaron the high priest had leprosy, the entire sacrificial system would shut down because he would be unclean. But seeing his sister struck is a terrible punishment for him too. He immediately begs Moses for forgiveness.
And Moses prays for her. She's shut out of the camp for 7 days, and the whole march halts.
Think about that. 2 million people. The cloud, the trumpets, everything stops for a week because of one person's sin. It shows that when leadership is fractured, progress completely stops.
But this is all just a warm-up for the main event. We arrive at chapter 13, the turning point, Kadesh Barnea.
This is the moment. They are right on the edge of the promised land. They can almost see it.
They are the southern border,
Right.
and the plan is to send in spies. 12 men, one leader from each tribe.
They go in for 40 days. They explore the whole land. And they come back with physical evidence.
They bring back a cluster of grapes so huge it has to be carried on a staff between 2 men. The land is exactly what God promised, flowing with milk and honey. It is lush. It is productive.
So the land is good, but
But the people are strong. The spies report. The cities are walled and very great. And moreover, we saw the children of Anak there.
the Nephilim, the giants. And this splits the jury. You have the majority report 10 spies, and the minority report Caleb and Joshua.
Caleb says, "Let us go up at once and possess it, for we are well able to overcome it."
And the 10 spies say, we be not able. And then they drop the line that sinks the entire nation. They say, we were in our own sight as grasshoppers, and so we were in their sight.
I want to focus on the phrase, "we were in our own sight as grasshoppers." That is a profound psychological statement.
It is the key to the entire book. This is what I call the slave mentality. You have to remember, these men were born in brick pits. They were raised under the whip of Pharaoh. They might be physically free, they walked out of Egypt, but mentally. They were still slaves.
They look at the giants and they don't compare the giants to God. They compare the giants to themselves.
Exactly. It's a crisis of comparison. Caleb and Joshua look at the giants and say, God is bigger than them, so they are bread for us. The 10 spies look at the giants and say, they are bigger than us, so we are dead. They defeated themselves before they even fought.
And the contagion of fear spreads instantly. Chapter 14 says the whole congregation lifted up their voice and cried. They weep all night. And then they make a decision that is basically treason against heaven.
They decide to appoint a new captain and return to Egypt.
Return to Egypt, after the plagues, after the Red Sea.
Think about the insanity of that.
It makes no sense.
They would rather be slaves in Egypt than trust God in a war. Because slavery offers certainty. Freedom is terrifying because it requires responsibility and faith. In Egypt, you know you will get leeks and onions, even if you get beaten. In the wilderness, you had to trust God for every single meal. They were choosing the security of slavery over the risk of faith.
And that is the ultimate tragedy of Kadesh Barnea. They were physically at the border, but their internal identity kept them out.
And because they wouldn't enter by faith, God closes the door. And this is where the book turns from an adventure story into a tragedy. The math of judgment kicks in.
A year for a day.
They spied the land for 40 days. So God says, fine, you love the wilderness so much, you are going to live there for 40 years. Until every single person in this generation, everyone over 20 who saw my miracles in Egypt and still didn't trust me, is dead.
That is chilling. That beautiful order we saw in chapter 1, that long list of names that has turned into a death list.
Exactly. The old generation is disqualified. They will never see the promise. Only Caleb and Joshua are exempt. The book pivots right here. They turn back into the desert to wait for a funeral procession that will last 4 decades.
In a panic, they try to fix it, right? They try to invade the very next day.
Yes, the failed invasion.
Yeah.
They say, okay, we sinned, we'll go up now. But Moses' sin tells them, do not go. The Lord isn't with you. They go anyway, and the Amalekites slaughter them. You cannot force God's hand. When the door closes, it closes.
So now we enter the wandering years, chapters 16 through 19. And if we thought the rebellion was over, we were wrong. Enter Korah.
Korah is a Levite. This is an internal rebellion within the religious leadership itself. Korah, along with Dathan and Abiram, gathers 250 princes, men of renown.
And what's their beef?
Hierarchy. They challenge Moses and Aaron, saying, "You take too much upon you, seeing all the congregation is holy." Basically, we are all holy. Why are you too special? Why do you get to be the high priest?
It sounds like a modern democratic argument. Power to the people.
It does. But in a theocracy, it's mutiny. God appointed Aaron. Challenging Aaron is challenging God's choice. Moses proposes a test, the censer test.
Right. He says, you want to be priests, grab a censer, put fire in it, and come before the Lord.
It's a massive showdown. The next day, the glory of the Lord appears. And Moses makes a terrifying prediction. He says, "If these men die a normal death, then God hasn't sent me. But if the earth opens its mouth..."
And that is exactly what happens. The ground literally cleaves asunder.
It swallows Korah, Dathan, Abram, their households, and all their goods. They go down alive into the pit, and then fire comes out from the Lord and consumes the 250 men holding the censers.
You would think that would settle it. You see the earth swallow your rival, you shut up and get in line. But the very next day, the people blame Moses.
They say, "You have killed the people of the Lord. It is completely irrational." A plague breaks out immediately. And this is one of the most heroic moments for Aaron in the whole narrative.
Describe that for us.
People are dying by the thousands. 14,700 die. Moses yells at Aaron, "Take a censer and run into the midst of the congregation." Aaron, an old man at this point, runs into the middle of the plague. He stands between the dead and the living, offering incense. The plague stops.
The very man they were rebelling against is the one who saves them.
Precisely. It thoroughly vindicates his priesthood. He is the intercessor. And just to make it final, God does the miracle of the budding rod. 12 staffs are placed in the tabernacle. Only Aaron's dry wooden staff buds, blossoms, and yields ripe almonds overnight. Life out of death.
Speaking of death, we then get the ritual of the red heifer in chapter 19. When I first read it, it felt a bit disconnected, but in context, it makes total sense.
It makes perfect sense contextually. Think about it. They are now sentenced to wander until the whole generation dies. That means death is going to be a daily reality in the camp. Funerals every single day.
And touching a dead body makes you unclean.
Right. If you touch a corpse, you defile the tabernacle. So they needed a scalable way to deal with the impurity of death. The ashes of a red heifer are used to create water separation. It's a purification system for a nation that is effectively a walking graveyard.
That is a heavy image, a walking graveyard. As we move into section 6, chapters 20 and 21, the icons start to fall.
We are jumping forward in time now, toward the end of the 40 years, and the leaders of the old guard pass away. Miriam dies at Kadesh. Aaron dies on Mount Hor. His robes are stripped and put on his son Eleazar.
And Moses has his worst moment.
The failure at Meribah. It is a tragic echo of the past. No water. The people complain. God tells Moses to speak to the rocks.
But Moses doesn't speak.
He is angry. He's been dealing with these people for 40 years. He says, "Hear now, ye rebels, must we fetch water out of this rock?" And he strikes the rock twice with his staff.
Must we? He includes himself in the miracle working.
He takes the glory, and he strikes the rock in anger, instead of obeying the specific command to speak. God provides the water, but he tells Moses, "Because you didn't believe me, to sanctify me in the eyes of the people, you will not bring them into the land."
Moses is disqualified after everything. That seems really harsh if you're just reading it casually.
It underscores the profound responsibility of leadership. Moses misrepresented God. He made God look like an angry tyrant striking out, when God wanted to show grace by simply providing water at a word. Moses cannot lead them into the new phase because he is stuck in the old dynamic.
So the leadership is crumbling, and the people, true to form, complain about the manna again. Our soul loatheth this light bread.
And God sends fiery serpents. Snakes. It's a nightmare scenario. People are being bitten and dying. They cry out for help.
And the cure is bizarre.
A bronze serpent on a pole. Moses is told to make an image of the very thing that is killing them. And the instruction is simple. Look and live.
It requires no work, just looking.
It's an act of pure faith. You have to turn your eyes away from your wound and look at God's provision. It is a powerful foreshadowing of faith over works, which Jesus himself references later in the New Testament.
Now, as they're approaching the end of the journey, they start winning some battles. They defeat Sihon and Og. But this draws the attention of the locals. And we get one of the strangest interludes in the Bible, the story of Balaam.
Balak, the king of Moab, is terrified. He sees this massive horde of Israelites, this ox, licking up the grass, as he calls them. He knows he can't beat them militarily, so he decides to go nuclear. He goes to spiritual warfare.
He hires a gun, Or rather, a mouth for hire. Balaam. Now, who is this guy? Because archaeology actually helps us out here, right?
It does. This is one of the few biblical characters we've found outside the text. In 1967, archaeologists found the Deir al inscription in Jordan. It literally mentions Balaam, son of Beor, a seer of the gods. He was a famous international consultant in the cursing business.
So he's not a nobody. He's the guy you call when you want to wipe out a nation supernaturally. And he charges a premium.
Balak offers him a house full of silver and gold. And Balaam, Balaam is complicated. He seems to know Yahweh, or at least knows of him, but he's clearly transactional.
And this sets up one of the most bizarre and frankly hilarious scenes in the entire narrative. The talking donkey.
It is satire at its finest. Here you have Balaam, the renowned seer, the man whose entire job is to see spiritual realities, and he's blind as a bat. He can't see the angel of the Lord standing right in front of him with a drawn sword.
But the donkey can.
The donkey has more spiritual insight than the prophet. The donkey veers off the road. Balaam beats her. She crushes his foot against the wall. He beats her again. Finally, the donkey just lays down.
And then God unmutes the donkey. And I love that the donkey doesn't say repent or the end is nigh. She makes a workplace harassment complaint.
She really does. She says, "Am I not your donkey? Have I ever done this to you before?" It's such a reasonable, calm argument. And Balaam is so angry, he doesn't even realize he's arguing with livestock. He just yells back, "You made me look like a fool."
It deconstructs Balaam completely. It shows that he has no real power. If God can speak through a donkey, he can certainly control the mouth of a pagan prophet.
Which is exactly what happens when he finally gets to the mountain. Balak builds the altars, sacrifices the bulls, gets ready for the doom and gloom, and Balaam opens his mouth, and pure poetry comes out. How can I curse whom God has not cursed?
And not just blessings. He gives a prophecy that ripples all the way forward. I shall see him, but not now. There shall come a star out of Jacob.
That star prophecy is likely what the Magi, the wise men from the east, were reading centuries later. They were likely from the same region as Balaam's tradition. So in a weird way, this mercenary prophet gave the coordinates for the Messiah.
But the story has a dark twist. Balaam can't curse them. But he doesn't give up on the paycheck, does he?
No, he doesn't. He realizes he can't fight God's protection from the outside. But he figures out a hack. If he can get Israel to curse themselves, the protection will lift.
The doctrine of Balaam.
Seduction. Later texts imply this was Balaam's advice. He tells Balak, "Don't send soldiers. Send the women. Send the daughters of Moab with wine and idols."
And it works.
It works terrifyingly well. The Israelite men are seduced into whoredom and worshiping Baal-peor. And a plague breaks out. 24,000 die. It only stops when Phinehas, Aaron's grandson, sees a man taking a Midianite woman into his tent right in front of the tabernacle. A completely brazen act. Phinehas takes a javelin and, well, he ends it.
He thrusts the javelin through both of them. It is violent, but the text says it turned away God's wrath.
It was zeal for God's holiness. It stopped the rot. And it marks the end of the plague and effectively the end of the old generation.
Which brings us to Section 8, the new generation. Chapter 26 opens with another census.
The second census. They are on the plains of Moab now, just across the river from Jericho. They count again.
And the number?
601,730. Almost exactly the same as 40 years ago.
But the names are different.
Completely different. The text notes explicitly that not a man of them whom Moses and Aaron numbered in Sinai was left, except Caleb and Joshua. The transition is complete. The old, fearful generation is gone. This is a new, battle-hardened generation.
And we see signs that this generation thinks differently. We have the story of the daughters of Zelophehad.
This is a fascinating moment for rights. A man named Zelophehad died with no sons. Under the old rules, his land would be lost. His 5 daughters approach Moses publicly at the door of the tabernacle and ask for an inheritance.
They say, "Why should the name of our father be done away from among his family, because he hath no son?"
And God agrees with them. He tells Moses, "The daughters of Zelophehad speak right." It sets a legal precedent. It shows that this new society is engaging with the law, asking questions, and clarifying justice.
We also see the succession plan finally unfold. Moses is told to go up Mount Abarim and view the land he can't enter. He has to pass the baton.
He asks God for a new shepherd, and God appoints Joshua. Moses lays hands on him in the sight of all the congregation. It's a peaceful transfer of power. There's no power struggle like with Korah. It's entirely orderly.
But there is one last snag. The Transjordan Compromise. The tribes of Reuben and Gad. The guys on the south side of the camp, they look at the land east of the Jordan River and say, "Hey, this is good for cattle. Can we just stay here?"
Moses panics at first. He thinks it's Kadesh Barnea all over again. He thinks they are quitting. He says, "Shall your brethren go to war, and shall ye sit here?"
But it's not a rebellion this time?
No. They make a deal. They say, "We will build folds for our sheep here, but we will cross over armed and fight until the land is conquered. Then we will come back."
And Moses agrees.
He does. It shows flexibility. As long as the unity of the mission is maintained, the specifics can be negotiated.
The book closes with final instructions, boundaries of the land, cities of refuge for accidental killers. Again, more justice protocols.
And that brings us to the very end. They are camped on the precipice.
So let's synthesize this. We have gone from Sinai to Moab, from the first census to the second.
We moved from order, that beautiful geometric camp, into disorder, the complaints, the rebellion of the spies, the rebellion of Korah, and finally into reordering, the new census, the new leader, the new laws.
And the big takeaway.
The wilderness revealed what was in their hearts. You said it earlier. It's easy to take the people out of Egypt, but it took 40 years to take Egypt out of the people. They had to learn that God wasn't just a rescue mechanism. He was their center.
Even when they failed, the tabernacle was always in the middle.
Always. The cloud never left them, even when they were faithless. God remained at the center of the camp, waiting for a generation that would trust him.
That is a powerful thought to end on. If you're listening to this right now, we all have wilderness phases. We are in between our deliverance and our promise. The question for you to mull over today is, are you trusting the cloud or are you complaining about the manna?
That really is the ultimate question of the book of Numbers.
Thanks for diving deep with us today. We will see you next time.
Goodbye.